Hello everybody. So welcome to a season 13 top 8 card stream between SerRaf's Quinlan Target Town and Dillen's Sabine ECL. Also, let me say hello from my side. First time you're gonna see me on this channel, and also first time you're seeing my face probably. I go by the screen name of Weiyun98, and I agreed with Rebel Traitor to take a few of the streams that he can't get for the league. So this will be my first time ever streaming today, so please be lenient with me, and enough of the talk, let's go. So I want to start by taking a quick look at the current bracket. So this is one of the 4 top 8 games that we will have, the first of them actually. There's just one top 16 game remaining, Hippo versus Destiny Rico. I hope that we'll get that in over the next couple of days. And then we should have that wrapped up. Let's take a quick look at deck lists. So Dillen is on Sabine ECL. I'll assume you all know kind of previous to set 4 cards, and so I will just mention the spice in here. So Dillen is on a few new cards from set 4, Luke Skywalker, Phoenix Squadron A-Wing, Sabine's Masterpiece, and I'll only focus on the main board for now. He does have 2 abilities to ambush, so 1 timely intervention, 1 ECL that I look out for. He also has the new R2. And a little spice is the Fighters for Freedom that you don't see in every Sabine deck anymore, as well as General Dodonna. 3 Darksabers. Also interesting, he goes for 3 Fleet Lieutenants, 3 wing leaders, and also still keeps the K2s that some decided to get rid of. So this should make for an interesting deck from his side. And then let's take a look at SerRaf's Quinlan Target Town. He also has some of the new set 4 cards. So what sticks here is Young Anakin, then the X-34 Land Speeder and Ambush Unit for 2, that's statted with 2/3. He's also running Red 5 and obviously the new Ahsoka, which maybe is the best yellow heroism card in the new set. And also Quinlan Target Town now often runs Poe Dameron. So the Poe unit from set 2, I believe. So this is all the spice. I will look at sideboards once we are getting into the second game. So now let me give a go ahead to the players and let's start. Alright, so what we're seeing here is Dillen, I believe, had a 9 on the dice roll. SerRaf had a 4, so Dillen took the initiative. Dillen's starting hand has a few turn 1 plays, Darksaber and Wrecker. That doesn't look bad. For Quinlan, also lots of options. Sabine, L3 and X-34. Yes, I forgot to mention that Quinlan is running, that SerRaf is running the Bamboozle here. So that could obviously be very handy against a Darksaber on the Sabine leader. Dillen, however, decided to go for a Mull, and I didn't see the first card he put down, but it must have been even worse than what he has on hand now, because he's suddenly out of good options for turn 1. So not sure why he went for the mulligan. Often you just think it's gonna get even better. And let's see what he makes of it. And off we go. Good old Sabine ping to start with. I think this often signals that either the Sabine player has, all the options in hand and can lane dodge, and either has an option, has an option for space as well as an option for ground, or doesn't know anything better to do. Of course, there's against Quinlan another good reason, because you avoid the Quinlan ping. But so this was a quick turn 1. And let's see what players decide for next. Dillen picked up a Darksaber. I think that's a nice pick. Quinlan has the answers in hand. SerRaf with the bamboozle. Keeps lots of low drops. Also, let me check that the stream is actually coming through. Yes, it is. All right. Also, just to let you know, we have a delay here of a few minutes. So whatever you will send in the chat will come a little bit later than the gameplay that I'm actually commenting on. So looking forward to what you're saying, but the game will already be a few minutes ahead from the comments that you make. All right, SerRaf decides to pass. Players exchanged blows to their bases. No, actually just Sabine went to base. Yes, Dillen went for the ping only now. Both players in the holding position here. Not sure what to do, it seems. SerRaf decides to go for the ambush unit. Does he ambush? Yes, he does. Gives him the ability to potentially kill the R2 with Tarkentown. Not sure that's a call I would make though. Dillen gets out the Fighters for Freedom. And off we go into the feared Sabine flip turn. SerRaf picked up a Plo Koon. That's always a great card to have. Previously topped out the Quinlan deck, like in set 3, people were seldom running any cards stronger or at higher cost than Plo, but that changed a bit. So Quinlan players now often go for the Han unit from Spark and also arguably Poe Dameron from Shadows is a stronger unit than Plo Koon. But good to see this. I think both players are now in a much better position than it looked early in the game. Dillen picked up some nice cards here, Darksaber and Wrecker, that should help him down the stretch. Also, K2 is still a very good card, especially in a matchup like this. So let's see, Dillen has the options, going either for the Darksaber or the K2. Also, since players know the deck lists of each other, Dillen is very aware that SerRaf is playing, I think it was 2 bamboozles in his main deck, and thus might very well have one on hand. So let's see how he plays around that. Also, maybe someone in the chat, even though I'll read it only in 2 minutes, maybe you can let me know whether the audio is okay. I could actually also put on my headphones, which might improve. I'll actually just try that, and you give me a feedback whether that's better, please. All right. So I actually assume it's better this way. Headphones now engaged. And we again traded blows between Sabine and then the Fighters for Freedom. Both players very much waiting for what the other player is doing. So Quinlan put Anakin onto the land speeder. I will not actually enlarge cards here. All right. And that's 7 to base, which already is quite a lot of damage on Dillen's base. Only 9 hit points to go. No. They're stuck in town. More move of a Dirtle, I think, because Quinlan. No, that doesn't make sense, actually. he decided to take the Tarkin town because there's no better opportunity and better waste it now than later, I guess. Huh. So Dylan is really thinking going Darksaber or not, taking the risk of Darksaber. Probably he decides for it because it's already he's already a little bit on the back foot. He was worried about Bamboozle, which is exactly what pretty sure that Quinlan will take that now. Even though he needs to waste his Plo Koon for that. So that's also quite a heavy price to ask. So since he's ahead so much, I guess he's actually now contemplating not bamboozling, even though he has the card in his deck probably exactly for this situation. But not bamboozling, and yes, he goes for that, and rather just getting down Plo Koon first thing next turn, with which he will not be able to kill the Sabine. But he'll get another unit onto the board. And would he have known that he now draws a Poe, he might actually have decided for the Bamboozle last phase. But this is how the game goes. Okay, so actually the Darksaber on Sabine got got Dillen a little bit back into the game. Of course, the SerRaf is now thinking he can still use the Bamboozle to tap Sabine and get the Darksaber to hand. And then play the Plo Koon, so the Poe Dameron. I think that's what he just thought about. But he decides to not do that because for the Bamboozle, he can, of course, play the Bamboozle for two. Maybe that's what he's opting for. Play the Bamboozle for two and then play red five this turn instead of the Plo Koon. Plo Koon would die to Sabine and not able to kill Sabine. So actually, yeah, I think I would do the same. Bamboozle here so that at least Sabine can't attack this turn. Dillen now has all the typical Sabine options. Too many good options to choose from. So will he ECL Poe? He could bring down the Darksaber onto the Fighters for Freedom, in assumption that there's not again something else that SerRaf could do. So that's a ping from Fighters. He's ECLing Poe into. Let me actually understand what's happening here. ECLing Poe into Sabine and then killing the upgrade. So Dylan just put down at least two cards, right? From hand. He killed the upgrade, he pinged 2 damage. Yes, he had another Fighters for Free on hand. And thus the Poe takes 2 damage. Ooh, this was quite the swing turn. And there's always Wrecker lurking, but no ECL anymore for next phase. So SerRaf is now thinking, what can he do? I mean, he'll still be able to. He could claim, but what are his options? So getting Quinlan out now, it still wouldn't switch on Plo. Miserable situation because the Poe is now in clear striking distance. So if he doesn't claim now, then he's surely lost the match. So Quinlan SerRaf needs to claim. Thanks for your feedback, guys. Reading it now. Good that you hear me. Yes, SerRaf is even throwing the game. Wow, what a turnaround by Dylan. It looked really good for Quinlan, and he might actually bite himself a little because would he have bamboozled the Sabine, he would not have eaten the Darksaber damage. He would have still been as a single digit damage count. Um, gone into the next turn, would have wasted Plo Koon and the Bamboozle, but he did, which he obviously didn't know, would have then top decked Poe and would have been able to play Poe and hardcast him. Dillen would have been able to answer with the Poe ECL himself, but a lot less damage on base. I guess that's probably what changed the game. Would have been interesting here to hear from SerRaf what made him not play the Bamboozle. He must have been worried that he top decks something of little value and was hoping to get out the Plo Koon, I believe. All right, so let me quickly do the sideboard thing. Almost forgot about it. Just told the players. So let's go back to the deck lists. First, look at Sabine. So, quick look at Sabine's deck list. Lots of one-offs, even though he's already having the masterpieces and Fighters for Freedom in deck. So I think we won't see the Bright Hopes nor the masterpiece. Maybe even the masterpieces come out because Quinlan is so light on space. What we might see is the Yularen, I guess. The Fighters for Freedom, third unit, that served Dillen very well. Maybe not much else. Not sure he brings in the Chewbacca's for this, and I don't think we go as far as for the U-Wing. On the Quinlan side, there is nice options to choose from. So the Bamboozle game he can now play because you never know. He knew that Dillen was maining three Dark Sabers. So now the question is Dylan taking out the Dark Sabers in anticipation of some more upgrade hate, which only would be this third Bamboozle here, right? So that's always a chicken and an egg game. And then I think very nice options for the Quinlan player are the hover tanks. They are amazing against Sabine. So I expect all three of them to come in. The pillage, maybe. The champ, surely not. Waylay, I wouldn't think so. So let's go back to the game and see what happens. So what I saw in the corner of my eye is that SerRaf took a mulligan there. About Dillen, I'm not sure. SerRaf has the initiative. Starting hand, he took a mulligan. Did he take a mulligan? I'm not sure. Maybe I didn't see that right. Takes one now anyway. And Dillen's starting hand doesn't have, well, he can again lane dodge, which is what he wants to do. Especially against Quinlan, he will probably start by using the Sabine ping. There's the hover tanks for SerRaf. He decides to get rid of the force throw. No force unit in hand. The Anakin isn't here. So probably not going for the discard game here. Go straight ahead with the unit. And Dillen picks up nice options. So does SerRaf. The hover tank comes out for 4. So not this phase just yet. Dillen puts down the Sabine. He might even put the Luke Skywalker onto the A-Wing here. Let's see whether he goes for that, because if then the A-Wing would somehow die, Luke would move to the ground. But he goes for Chewie, who also came, and I think there's no Chewbacca's in mainboard, right? And the Chewbacca on space unit play in turn 2 is amazing, this set. So that's a very strong play there, and he can ping the L3 because the Chewbacca is only on the A-Wing. So that's 6 damage. Yes. Decides to add damage with the Daring Rage. So now he can actually target down the A-Wing. That's at least a nice out, because else the A-Wing would have probably piled on too much damage for SerRaf to handle. SerRaf could go for the Kira. He decides against it. Pretty sure we'll see the hover tank now then. And Dillen has two 2-drops to play this turn. He's wary that they might get pinged, but just once, right? SerRaf already knows no Darksaber coming this phase because Dillen already spent the 2 resources on the A-Wing, the Phoenix Squadron. Another ping going to Sabine. Probably I would have pinged the A-Wing here, because if Sabine attacks, she's going to die anyway. Because she needs to run. She has to run into the Sentinel. And Dillen is now really thinking, does he even do anything, or does he just claim? He could bring down the Sabine, but he's very, very, I'm sure, that if the Quinlan player, if SerRaf has a Plo Koon unit here, it could be quite disastrous for him. So is he taking the risk? Oh, he's ECLing. Yes. I think that's a nice play. So the hover tank will actually die. So Dillen doesn't lose his momentum after all. 3 more damage to base. Yeah, tough call on the ECL, but often it's the very right thing to use it early in order to keep the game flow going. Otherwise, even though he can't use the ECL now for Poe or Wrecker anymore, but he's keeping the race going. SerRaf, on the other hand, top decks the Plo Koon, and it's activated. So I would assume Plo Koon is coming down now to take out Sabine. He's thinking he could also go for the other 2 cards, obviously. It's also not bad. He's threatening 5 damage, which would bring Dillen to 16, plus another 3 with Surprise Strike to 19. While Dillen is threatening 6 damage by himself, which would bring SerRaf to 18 damage. There comes the Plo Koon. And Dillen doesn't have anything to immediately answer. He needs to hardcast the Poe. He can't DCL him anymore. So his options are limited now. Which means SerRaf is thinking, if he takes another action, Dillen could claim already and then attack with the Poe to, for example, in one attack, take out Plo as well as L3. But he decides to add more damage. Dillen doesn't give up on that. Also, it's flip turn for SerRaf, right? So he's threatening with Quinlan another 5 damage. Which I believe. So Poe in one attack could also do 8 to base. However, if SerRaf continues his actions, he's gonna do 5 more damage to Dillen's base, which would bring Dillen to 19, which then gets Dillen in Plo Koon kill range by 1 action next action phase. So therefore, I think it's the right decision by SerRaf to keep attacking, because that forces Dillen to attack Plo Koon with Poe. And now, since SerRaf has a surprise strike on hand, I don't think there's anything that Dillen can do here. So we should be going into game 3. Let's see how the players play this out. Dillen weighing his options. Wrecker could come down. Not enough resources for both for Cause and Dodonna. So he's threatened one action lethal by Plo, and he doesn't know that the same applies to both Sabine and Quinlan, given that SerRaf has the surprise strike in hand. So therefore, Dillen knows he needs to do something against the units, but actually he can just GG, I guess. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing. I don't know. Dillen is playing a timely intervention. Does he have a bump? Yeah, any card that adds damage. Right. Switching off Plo Koon, fair enough. Keeping Poe in the race. He could have attacked Plo just as much as the that's the game. So he could have attacked Plo just as much as the Sabine. He wanted for some reason to have only 2 damage on Poe, so that Poe doesn't die to Quinlan. I'm pretty sure. Um, but given Dillen was already on 19 damage, I believe SerRaf would have gone to base anyway. So wow, what a game three. What a game two. We're going to game three. I think the pivotal moment in this game two was the ECL Sabine, which was a daring move by Dillen, who very quickly decides to go for a mulligan here at the start of game three. Um, Not sure would have gone otherwise if hadn't he used ECL at that point. So Dillen, there's the Yularen. Ooh, yeah, Dillen has the A-wing. I was thinking for a second that there's no turn one play. But there is the A-wing, and then could follow up with the Chewbacca, just what we've seen in game two, which is a really strong start. I think SerRaf needs to have the right cards on hand in order to be able to do anything against that. He could start with a Spark here. No, he can't, obviously, because Dillen has the initiative. But let's see whether Dillen actually decides to soft pass here by doing the Sabine ping, and he does. So that gives SerRaf the option either L3 or Spark and take Dillen's turn one play. He does not. Interesting. He probably expected Dillen to have 2 turn one plays on hand there, as he also did in game two. So that's a fair enough bet, I think, on Sabine. But going for the Spark there would have been devastating for Dillen. Top decks a Plo Koon. Nice card to have. So I think SerRaf is now thinking, does he want to keep the Ahsoka because Ahsoka allows him to force throw? However, if on the 4 resource turn he plays Ahsoka, he might rather want to go for the Plo Koon on the 5 resource turn instead of the force throw. While Dylan resourced really quickly, and he will most surely go for the Chewbacca onto the A-Wing. If SerRaf doesn't prohibit that, he does. Probably Dylan now brings down the Yularen, which is also a really nice, quite painful card. Once it's on board, it's a little difficult to remove with 5 hit points. He ECLs again. Okay, let's see whether this goes differently in game three. Interesting move there. So he decides to just play the force throw for Dylan to have to discard 1 card, no matter any damage, and kills the Sabine there. Interesting start to the game. So Plo Koon is not going to be active so very soon. And Dylan top decks a Poe, which once Poe is down, is an enormous threat on the board. I'm also just realizing I think I haven't seen the chat for the last 20 minutes. Sorry, everybody, but I'm back online in the chat now as well. I'll see later what I missed. So Dillen brings down the Euler N, his only play. Yeah, and SerRaf answers with the Kira, which probably, I mean, is also his only real play here, but probably is not too bad of a choice, because Dillen will have trouble getting the Poe down now anytime soon. And SerRaf doesn't draw a unit that he can really make good use of. That's tough. But Plo Koon is switched on once he decides to go for the leader flip. And Plo Koon would take out any of these two units that Dillen has out, right? As long as Kira is alive, only the masterpiece can come down. Right. So this move, interesting that SerRaf decided to go that route. So the masterpiece is the only turn 4 game that Dillen has. He can't play the Poe, but he has a Cassian in Smuggle. There we go. And now Dillen's already quite ahead in the damage race. So this looks increasingly good for Dillen. Will get SerRaf to 19, which is already close to threatening lethal. So SerRaf is probably already weighing his options because it looks dim. Doesn't even matter whether he attacks the Yularen or the base. The Yularen also has a restore 1. Dillen's units have 1 more hit point because of Yularen. So that means the Plo Koon just about kills the Cassian. But still, Dillen would do 5 more damage with the cards on the table. Okay, he can take out the A-Wing with the Daring Raid. Let's see whether Dillen attacks with Yularen or the A-Wing first. I would assume the Plo Koon comes down, takes out the Cassian Endor, but SerRaf is thinking whether he should kill the A-Wing first with the Daring Raid. He can actually also kill the Yularen with the Daring Raid. Decides to go for the Plo Koon. And ping. which probably makes Dillen attack with the Eula because he goes down to 1. Hang on. What am I missing? Oh yes, I'm missing Eula. I totally lost it as well. Haha. So the daring raid would have killed Eula. Tough. Yeah, SerRaf needs to claim here. And the Sabine ping does it all. Wow. Yes. So I mentioned earlier the Eula can be a real pain. And I mentioned that he increases hit points and then forgot it by myself. There you go. Okay. GG's to both players. Well played. Really good games. I think the pivotal move in game 3 was again the Sabine ECL. Just in game 3, it worked in Dillen's favor, as maybe not in game 2. So really interesting. GG's to both players. And I go with Rebel Traitor here and say, before I end the stream, always remember to take the initiative, at least at some point.